Alright, so welcome to Dominion Empires, What's in the Box, Part 1. So for the first video, I thought we'd go over the split pile cards and get started on those. Now there's about 5 split piles plus 1. There's one pile where it's a bunch of different cards, but they all have one theme. Castles. They're all castles. So we'll go over those last of all the split piles. So let's get started. Alright, so I thought we'd go over the first part of each of these 3 here before going over the next. Well, yeah, actually. So here we have Gladiator, we have Settlers, and we have Catapult. And under each one of these cards is another differently named card. So that's a split pile. You'll have 5 cards of the Gladiator. Then beneath it, you have Fortune, and there's 5 of them. Then you'll have 5 Settlers, and beneath it, you'll have 5 Bustling Villages. And then you'll have 5 Catapults, and then beneath it, you'll have 5 Rocks. Well, that makes sense. You're going to have to catapult something eventually, right? And, well, that's kind of thematic. Catapulting a rock. I really like that. It's actually one of my most favorite cards. But let's go over the Gladiator first. So, with Gladiator, you'll get 2 money. Then you'll reveal a card from your hand. The player to your left may reveal a copy from their hand. If they do not, you get a plus treasure, and then you trash a Gladiator from the supply. So that's kind of interesting. You can prevent your opponents from getting too many Gladiators. So obviously, your opponents will want to try to reveal a copy from their hand if they can, because you're also going to get an additional treasure to boot. So not only do you trash a Gladiator from the supply, but you'll get an extra treasure. So they're going to try to reveal it, and if this is the beginning of the game, most likely the cards you reveal, they will most likely have, especially if it's copper. So, even if you reveal a state, they'll probably still have it. So, beginning this in the beginning of the game makes it really hard to get that extra treasure and, trash a Gladiator from the supply. So, it's recommended that you try to get some cards that your opponents don't get. Buy some of the other action cards before you play this, possibly. At least buy them. That way, you can try to get... try to keep your opponents from getting too many Gladiators, or at least so that way you can get your extra treasure for the card to make it worth your while playing it. Because getting plus 3 treasure is better than getting plus 2, for sure. So, and then underneath it, after all of the Gladiators are gone, Fortune, which is a treasure card, comes up. Now, we're going to go over the debt token cards shortly after we do the split piles. But in order to pay for this, you must have 8 money. Then, after you buy this, assuming you just had 8 money to buy it, it's going to give you 8 debt tokens. 8 of them. So these are the debt tokens. You're going to get 8 of these, and while you have at least a single debt token, you will not be allowed to buy any cards until all your debt is paid off. Of course, there are ways around that. You could still gain cards, you just can't buy cards until all your debt is paid off. So you'll obviously want to pay off your debt as soon as possible. But if you buy this for 8 money, it could be a turn or 2 before you pay off all of the debt for it. So you'll miss a couple of turns where you can't buy anything, and your opponents, well, if they didn't buy this, they'll be buying cards and you won't. But that's okay, because this is a really good treasure, and you will get your money's worth probably out of it later. So let's go over what it does. So you'll get a plus buy, and then when you play this, double your money if you haven't yet this turn. Then when you gain this, gain a gold per Gladiator you have in play. So it's also recommended that when you buy this, that you should have at least one of these in play, so you'll get a gold when you buy this as well. That'll be beneficial. And if you can get a few actions involved that give you plus actions and play more than 1 Gladiator in a turn, you'd get more than 1 gold in that turn. So that's really cool. But what's really cool is doubling your money. Now, sometimes this will be beneficial and sometimes it won't. Sometimes you'll have a turn when you only have like 3 money and then you double it and you get 6. Well, that's pretty good. But sometimes I've had turns where I only had like 2 money and then I doubled it and I only had 4. So, unfortunately, that's how it happens. So, but if you can double your money when you have like 8 money, well, that's 16 money and 2 buys. You could buy 2 provinces basically with the fortune if that was the case. So that's really cool. But make sure you have paid off that debt long before you actually get to do all that. So, anyways, that's a pretty cool card. Gladiator and Fortune. Pretty interesting split pile. Then we have Settlers. With this one, it's sort of a copper strategy. Both cards really work with this copper strategy. So if you're a copper strategist like myself, this is one of the cards that work well with coppers. So Settlers, you'll get a card, you'll get an action, and that's basic, right? But then you'll look through your discard pile, and you may reveal a copper from it and put it into your hand. So as long as you have a discard pile, you'll probably have some coppers in it, and you'll get an extra copper to put into your hand. That's really cool. But what really makes this cool is the card below it. So after you've lost all your Settlers, you'll then have the Bustling Village. And with the Bustling Village, you get 1 card and you get 3 actions. Wow, 3 actions. That's a good card. But that's not what makes it really good. It's what it does as well that makes it really good. So you'll look through your discard pile. You may reveal a Settlers from it and put it into your hand. So that's really cool. So this is going to give you another action card, assuming there's a Settlers in your discard pile. Then you'll get to put this into your hand. Then you can play the Settlers and put a copper from your discard card pile into your hand. So really cool. So if you do have a lot of these Settlers and Bustling Villages, you'll get a lot of cards, you'll get a lot of actions, and you'll get a lot of coppers. And of course, if you have other action cards, you'll have one heck of a turn for sure. So it's going to be a fun turn if you have both of these, especially if you held on to a lot of your coppers as well. So, but if you don't have a discard pile when you play this or this, it's not going to do you much, for sure. So it's good when you have a nice big deck, maybe half of your deck is actually in your discard pile. That makes this card all the worthwhile. Especially if you keep playing Bustling Village more than one time because you have more than one. Then we have probably my most favorite card in this expansion, one of them anyway, but it's definitely my most favorite card that's a split pile. At least the first one, a part of it is, but I like the second one too if I can get it. So here we have the Catapult, and it'll give you a treasure when you play it. Then you can trash a card from your hand. If it costs 3 or more, each other player gains a Wasteland, or a curse for those of you who play with curses. Then if it's a treasure, each other player discards down to 3 cards in hand. Awesome card. So if you were to trash a silver, for instance, you could attack them on both fronts. You could give them a Wasteland, and you could make them discard down to 3 cards in hand. It's awesome card for sure. Now, if you just trash a copper, that's good too, because they still have to discard down to 3 cards in hand, because copper is a treasure. So that's really good, useful too. So this is a good way of getting rid of your coppers, but it's also a good way of trashing them at the same time as well as attacking them. And if you decide you want to trash a silver with this, all the more better, because then they get hit by 2 attacks in 1 card. So that is awesome. And if all the catapults are gone, which is what I try to do, is I try to buy a couple of these and hope the other players would do so. So this way I can get the rocks, all the more better. Because catapulting rocks always does more damage, right? It's always most beneficial if you catapult a rock. And so this is what the rocks do. They're worth a treasure. Then when you gain or trash this, gain a silver. If it's your buy phase, put the silver onto your deck. Otherwise, put it into your hand. So let's say you gain this. You get to put the silver onto your deck for your next turn. But if you gain this during your turn, like before the buy phase, you'll get to put that silver into your hand. Then, if you trash this with the catapult, well, that's during your turn. And it's going to replace those rocks with a silver. So you're going to have a silver, which gives you 2 treasure, and rocks just gives you 1. And at the same time, you're using the catapult to trash this, so your opponents are getting hit by 2 attacks once again, because the rocks is a 4-costing treasure card. So that's a really powerful combo. These two combined, awesome cards. Let's go over the next ones. So, we have the Encampment. The Encampment is my second most favorite card, with the Settlers being my third favorite. But what's underneath the Encampment is what I truly enjoy, not necessarily the Encampment itself. With the Encampment, you'll get 2 cards and you'll get 2 actions. You may reveal a gold or a plunder from your hand. If you do not, you'll set this aside and return it to the supply at the start of cleanup. So this is a card that could end up, covering the plunders quite a bit. Once you get rid of all the encampments and you find yourself buying a plunder, it's still possible an encampment will be returned to the supply, meaning you'll have to buy this again before you can buy the plunder. But what's really fascinating is the plunder. With the plunder, you get 2 treasure, and then every time you play it, you get a +1 victory token. And these are the victory tokens. So you'll get a lot of victory points that don't clog up your debt with these victory tokens. That's what really makes this combo a very powerful card. I love that. But, like I said, the encampment will return to the top of the supply on the plunder pile or encampment pile if you don't reveal a gold or a plunder from your hand. So in the beginning of the game, most likely what's going to happen is you play this card and it's going to go right back to the top of the supply pile. So getting this in the beginning of the game, you run the risk of that. I've tried sometimes to just hold on to it and not play it, but then I don't have a good turn because I didn't play it. So it's like, it's something you will want to wait to buy at least until you get yourself a gold. Then that way you have a chance of holding on to the encampment after that, because you'll get the 2 cards first before you have the option to reveal a gold. So that's why it's like, oh, let's see, I don't have the gold now, I'll play this, maybe I'll get lucky and I'll draw a gold. And then, I can reveal it and I get to keep my encampment. So that's a pretty cool combo. Okay, so we'll go over the next split pile in the next video.